obviously I am very fortunate to have him helping me as we work our way through this campaign for the presidency. And I want to share one thing, that I am the luckiest man in the entire world. And I'm the luckiest man in the entire world because some 45 years ago, this lady said yes to going out with me on a date. A beautiful First Lady, a fabulous mother, a wonderful wife, and I'll tell you, she will make America a great First Lady. I also want to take just a second to say thanks to a couple of fine conservatives who are also on our team. I'm proud to have them helping. Great leaders, John Steinberger and Pam Olson, so thanks to both of them. You know, Florida's on the road. You think about what's going on in the state. Florida's going headed in the right direction. It's got men and women who are helping build a Republican majority in this great state, and it's the grassroots delegates of P5. It is huge. And I want you to know I'm getting on a plane when the debate's over with, and I'm not going back to Texas. I'm staying in Florida. From here, we're going to be competing all across this state in this P5 straw poll that served a great purpose over the course of the years. I think it's really important for the candidates to understand that P5 matters. Ronald Reagan understood P5 matters in 1979. I've enjoyed traveling across this state, getting to know a lot of folks in recent weeks, campaigning the only way I know how. That's just a true believer in the conservative principles that have made our country great. Our founders didn't need a nanny state to carve out the greatest civilization known to man out of these eastern wilderness. We didn't need that nanny state. We didn't need a nanny state to win the Second World War and then the Cold War. We didn't need a nanny state to revive our economy, to create jobs, and to renew our nation's promise. This larger government that's growing, we see our freedoms shrinking. And my conservative values that I learned in that little place called Bank Creek, I'm proud to be the son of tenant farmers. And I can tell you one thing, I wasn't born with 4 aces in my hand. We weren't wealthy in material things, but we were sure rich in a lot of other things. We were rich in spirit, we were rich in values. And I wasn't helping my mom and dad. I wasn't helping my mom and dad grow cotton out on the farm or attending Bank Creek Rural School. You can generally find me over at Mr. Overton's place, participating in Troop 48 in the Boy Scouts of America, working on my Eagle Scout. What I learned growing up on a farm was a way of life that was centered around hard work, on faith and family. Those values stick with me today. But you know, it wasn't until I graduated from Texas A&M University and was flying tactical airlift around the world that I really appreciated the blessings of freedom. To paraphrase both Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan, I realize that the United States of America really is the last best hope of mankind. You know, some people say that America is in decline. I disagree. Washington, D.C. is in decline. It's Washington's insatiable desire to spend our children's inheritance on this failed stimulus plan and our misguided economic theories that have given us these record debt and left far too many of our citizens unemployed. And of course, now we're told we're in a recovery. Yeah. It sure doesn't feel like a recovery. Sure doesn't feel like a recovery when 9% or better of our citizens are unemployed, when 16% of the African American population is unemployed, 11% of our Hispanic population unemployed. millions more who can't even find part-time work, or those who have just completely stopped looking. When 1 in 6 work-eligible Americans cannot find a job, that is not an economic recovery, Mr. President. That is an economic disaster. We cannot live with, we cannot afford 4 more years of this high unemployment, this failed stimulus, this record debt, the loss of our credit. It is time for a change. And I'm not talking about just the rhetoric of change, I'm talking about the record of change, and I've got that record of change. My home state has created, since June of 2009, 40% of all the jobs created in this country. And as governor, I've led with a few guiding principles. Number 1 principle is don't spend all the money. Have some fiscal restraint. Have a tax policy in place that has as light an impact on our job creators as we can. Keep our regulations fair and predictable, and a legal system that doesn't allow for oversuing. You know, last month the Obama administration, they had the audacity to call food stamps a stimulus. Food stamps are a symptom of the problem, Mr. President. They're not the solution. And the problem is too many Americans can't find work today because this administration's big government policies. The problem with the liberals is that they think there is a government answer to every problem. And they think Washington knows best, even when the Constitution is very clear about what belongs to the states. Now here's an example. President Obama's Race to the Top program. It asks states to agree to federal education standards that I might add have not been written yet, in exchange for what would be so generous from them as to return some of our money that we had sent up there in the form of federal dollars. It is wrong for the federal government to take over local schools. We need to give more power to the states, more freedom to the individuals. You know, there is nothing ailing America that the rebirth of freedom cannot cure. And let me just say this. Our precious freedom, guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, not only guarantees the right to worship as we please, but it ensures that men and women of faith do not have to abandon their values or their faith at the steps of the public square. This is just one of the reasons that I have consistently appointed strict constructionists to the bench in Texas, and I will continue to do so as your president. Our nation is enriched by the contributions of men and women of faith. We see this dynamic in houses of worship who organize great efforts to help victims of hurricanes, floods, wildfires across this country. We see men and women of faith ministering to addicts and to the homeless, to children without fathers, the elderly living alone. The goodness of America cannot be measured by the size of our government or the amount of money entrusted in the federal bureaucracy. It's measured by the charity and the devotion of private citizens offered to people in need. Not because they have to, because they want to. And that is why I take a strong exception to this president's plan to limit charitable tax deductions. Now is not the time to discourage private giving, not with 45 million Americans on food stamps, 14 million people unemployed. Now is not the time, Mr. President. Let me close with this final thought. This governor has made a great deal of decisions with consequences over the year. I couldn't have done so without being driven to my knees on many occasions. As I campaigned for president, I don't only ask you for your vote and your support, I ask you for your prayers. I ask you to pray for our country. I ask you to pray for our president, to give him wisdom, to open his eyes. I ask for the prayers for the health and the healing of a country that will transcend party politics, and as does our Creator, whose purposes and ways cannot be co-opted by any political party. I want to quote Abraham Lincoln. My concern is not whether God is on my side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side. Let us be humble enough to seek God's wisdom and direction in our lives, but bold enough to speak out for the justice in the public square. God bless you, and through you may God continue to bless this great country.